मार्च 15 हो संवसारीक गिरायक दीस. आता गुढीपाडवा आसूं, दिवाळी आसूं, क्रिसमस आसूं किंवा 26 जानेवारी 15 ऑगस्ट आमकां सगळ्यांक एस्पेशली इंडियन आनी म्हाका दिसता ह्युमन्साक सगळ्यांक विकत कितें तरी नवें घेवप आवडटा. आय थिंक इफ वी वॉन्ट टू समरायज जाल्यार वी आर इन दी एज ऑफ कन्झ्युमरिझम. आतां हे जेन्ना म्हणटा तेन्ना म्हाज्या वांगडा आयज एक इंट्रस्टिंग अशे गेस्ट आसा. आयज आमकां जॉइन जाता ह्या निमतान धनंजय जोग जे आसा प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ गोवा स्टेट कन्झ्युमर डिस्प्यूट रिड्रेसल फोरमाचे. आणि सर, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल वेलकम टू दिस शो and thank you very much for sparing your valuable time to join us.
Thank you, Rohit. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to appear on your prominent channel. More important than that, it is an opportunity for me to address consumers in Goa and try and make them aware of the rights which many of them they do not know.
प्रोग्राम सुरू जावच्या पयलीं एक सांगपाक सोदता की we don't want to scare anybody. Like, you know, buying and selling is part of the age that we are. म्हाका एकूच सांगपाक जाय की ऑब्वियसली कन्झ्युमरिझम जेन्ना म्हणटा आमी ताका एक कन्सिडरेबल पार्ट आसा की खंयचेंय जेन्ना ट्रान्झॅक्शन जाता ताज्या नंतर जे डिस्प्यूट जाता ते खंय तरी यू नो सोक्षमोक्ष ताजो लावचो हाज्या वटेन इज युअर फोरम वर्किंग टुवर्ड्स. इफ आय वॉन्ट टू अंडरस्टँड बेसिक लोकल लेमॅन लँग्वेजान जर म्हाका तुमचें काम जर अंडरस्टँड जावपाक जाय, हाऊ वूड यू एक्सप्लेन इट टू माय जनरल पब्लिक?
A very, very good question. Basically, या जगान, at least in human world or even domestic, there is nobody who is not a consumer.
True.
Once even a baby is a consumer. If you have a dog or a pet, that is also a consumer.
True.
Because you are buying something for the baby. Your wife is buying milk for the baby.
True.
You're buying dog food for your dog. On the other hand, your brother is giving you a present. Of a motorcycle, say. So everybody is a consumer, and hence consumers should be aware of their rights.
Correct.
Much earlier it used to be said that let the buyer beware, but with this consumer movement taking place, now the message is let the seller be aware that he does not hoodwink the customer.
True.
So that is the approach of the consumer.
So again, जर इंडिया पर्स्पेक्टिव्ह म्हणत किंवा इवन गोवा पर्स्पेक्टिव्ह म्हणत, यु नो, तुम्ही म्हटले की ऑब्वियसली बायर शूड बी अवेअर ऑफ द राईट्स बेसिकली अँड ऑल दिस एस्पेशली दिस ऍक्ट, आणि द सेलर ऑल्सो शूड नॉट फूल अराउंड. म्हणजे कोणाकूय नागो किंवा टोपी घालप अशें ना. हाऊ डू यू सी गोवा एज अ केस स्टडी? मी पयलीं सावथाक आसले, देन यू शिफ्टेड टू नॉर्थ, अँड टुडे यू आर यु नो एज अ प्रेसिडेंट वर्किंग at state level.
That's right.
How has been your experience?
It has been a very, very unique and learning experience. Not just the Goa perspective, but let's say a line about the world perspective. In the US, Ralph Nader, in the 60s, he started this consumer movement because cheating used to take place everywhere. And that is what eventually culminated in the United Nations adopting a resolution in about 1985 that every country of every member nation of the UN should form their own consumer protection laws. That is how this law came into effect. The act came into effect in India and hence in Goa too in 1986. Goa has grown a bit slowly. It is a small state and by and large educated consumers. So probably the need was not there as much, and the need of growth wasn't there. So we started at one single place, both districts and state all operated from a single room in Junta House. And now it has grown. You have separate district commissions, you have separate state commission. And the growth has been there because the number of consumers have increased. Hence, correspondingly, the number of people who have not responded, the sellers who have not responded correctly, they have also increased, and hence the number of cases are increasing. Given to that, you also add the fact that consumer awareness has increased. It's not still increased as the way we would like it ideally, but still a large number of people are aware that they have their rights when they buy a product or when they avail a service.
Goa is a very small state, sir. You also said, the number is not, or maybe the journey is not that great as compared to vis-a-vis other states. Goa, everybody knows everybody. So आमकां अशें दिसता की कसली जर गोष्ट हाडली आणि ती जर मोडली until unless it's very expensive, I don't think anybody will take the other person at task. ते म्हणतात आपल्या नशीबूत फुटके म्हणतात पडली पाट्ट संवसाराक सायडीक काडले. So हो जो प्रवास आसा पळय, I want to understand is when we say consumer act or how you operate.
Yes.
Is it service? Is it products? Is it some a different? What are the categories or segments that you'd like to mention?
A consumer can file a complaint under any category, wherever he has paid, whether he has paid 1 rupee, 10 rupees, or 3 crore rupees for a bungalow, wherever he has paid, it need not be a product. You pay 45 rupees to a courier company to deliver your letter to Mumbai. So you are paid. You expect service.
Correct.
If that letter never gets delivered, then you have been wronged.
True.
You buy a bus ticket from Panji to Madgaon. You expect him to drop you. The least, unless he breaks down.
Yeah.
That is it. But in case, Goa, we have a lot of these private bus companies. In case 99% of the people get down at Akshi, he'll say, I don't want to take the bus ahead just for one man. Take back your ticket fare and get off. That's no. He is bound to drop you till Madgaon. So that is
to honor your commitment.
You have to honor the commitment.
For the transaction that you do.
And what used to happen earlier for a small product or something bought from a friend may not necessarily happen for an expensive car.
Okay.
People buy a 20 lakh rupee or more car or a much larger flat or an expensive television or a fridge. They cannot afford to give it up so easily.
Correct.
If the dealer is your friend, at least you expect that the manufacturer should support the dealer and get your product set right.
Correct.
So that is where the consumers, have become more active, have become more demanding, and rightfully so.
So this includes for service also.
All
if there is a
service.
transaction, if for example any educational institution for that matter, or any service that is given.
There are certain exceptions. For example, if a service is subsidized by the government, or if a service is given to you free of charge. For example, a government hospital, they may be charging you for a room, and they may charge you for medicines, or they may tell you to go to the pharmacy and buy. But the government hospital per se does not charge you.
Correct.
In case they do not charge you, then you are not a consumer vis-a-vis them.
Okay.
If to give you the same example, if I give you a lift to Madgaon and say I meet, just for joking sake, if I meet my girlfriend at Akshi, I said, Rohit, I don't want to take you ahead.
Correct.
I want to go off with her. I have given you a free lift. So no doubt, morally I am wrong.
Yeah.
You may no more continue to be my friend. But legally, as a consumer, you're not my. You're not
because
my
there is
consumer.
no money exchanged.
Absolutely.
It is just on a goodwill basis or a casual basis that has happened. You mentioned that a transaction has to happen.
True.
Okay, whether it is 1 rupee or 1 CR.
Yes.
It is
Or more.
More. A transaction has to happen.
Absolutely.
Now the हे तुम्ही म्हणताले की हे organized sector there is proper bill, receipt and all this. तुम्ही example दिले hospitalचे is a different category altogether. However, there is a lot of transaction happen in unorganized sector.
True.
Because of UPI and because of all this digital payment, at least there is some transaction which is registered. Otherwise, it is cash transaction.
True.
How does the forum focus on this aspect also?
Yes, that's a very interesting question. I would like to explain to you that unlike in a criminal procedure or unlike in a murder case, this is not a case, a consumer case is not a case where unchallenged 100% incontrovertible proof is needed.
Okay.
For example, if you go to your next door grocer and he is your usual grocer, you buy a 25 rupee milk packet from him. He has another boy waiting there to buy a chocolate and another housewife waiting to buy from some grocery. So he is not going to give you a bill. You pay him 25 rupees, walk off with the pocket. So there is no bill. However, if that milk packet turns out to be stale, rotten, you have a provision. You say so.
Okay.
And then these things are taken into consideration. You say, for example, that this is my neighborhood grocer, and last 3 years I've been buying from him. My neighbor is supporting my statement. So these things are taken into consideration.
Somebody has to testify that.
Yes.
Okay.
He does not necessarily have to come over and testify, but he can sit at his home and testify in writing.
Oh.
So you don't have to
So
trouble
it is
him.
that comfortable.
It is.
It's not a hardcore maybe how a court case is maybe handled. It's not that.
It is not that clear,
Okay.
unchallengeable proof. That sort of thing is.
Okay, coming back to the data, like
Yes.
you also agree that the numbers have not been great. Obviously, it's a very small state. How do you see the data maybe for the past a decade maybe or maybe a couple of years that have gone by, just to understand in numbers how Goa has responded to the forum and consumer forum?
I would say the increasing the number of cases in the last 10 to 12 years at least has easily seen progress of 20% year to year. Its number of cases are increasing that many.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the number of cases being filed. And proportionately, especially in the last 3 years, at the state commission as well as at the districts, we have been able to increase the number of disposals also, because that is what finally matters. That maximum number of cases filed should be disposed. That is where the person will get justice.
Is there a time frame with respect to disposal?
Yes, there is an ideal time frame, specified in the Act,
Okay.
which is 3 months from the date of receipt of the date of receipt of the complaint, but the receipt of the notice to the other side.
Okay. Which the forum
which
issues.
the commission will send out
Okay.
once his complaint is admitted. So the complaint is admitted. Suppose you are the shopkeeper, the notice is sent to you, and you get a month's time to respond. From the end of that month, within 3 months, in the sense, for the first time when you appear, from that time, 3 months, ideally one should.
Okay.
Frankly, it does not so happen.
It takes time, or
It takes longer. It takes
Longer.
longer. There is already also a provision in the Act that if certain things need to be tested in a laboratory or by an expert,
correct.
because you say this is not a defective product, I say it is defective. So an expert has to examine and determine if it is indeed defective. In such cases, then the provision is for 5 months instead of 3 months, 5 months. But in Goa, by and large, within a year, we have been able to dispose most cases, especially in the last 3 years.
Okay. You just touched upon, what is the procedure. Like, for example, disposal happens to be in 3 months, but however, is a stipulated time. But ek वर्ष मेरेन Goa तरी केला, not more than that.
Right.
If I want to understand, if like my viewers are now watching the program, कोणाक तरी दिसता की आपल्याकडे हो पीस हा तो फॉल्टी असा आपल्या शॉपकीपरान किंवा खंयच्या तरी एजन्सीज नागयला आणि आपल्याक ही केस आता रजिस्टर करप. What is the procedure step wise if you want to break it down?
Right. That is the beauty of this Act, that the procedure is very simple. Firstly, as long as you make number of copies needed, they can even be handwritten complaint with sufficient carbon or Xerox copies.
Okay.
It's not necessary to type it out on stamp paper or letterheads. You can simply make handwritten complaints, or you can type it out. You simply say in your own words, what is your issue? I bought this flat, but it is leaking from day one. Or I bought the television, it failed from the end of the month, and I'm not getting service. Put it out clearly in simple words. One has to remember whom to name. Whom to address, of course, is simple. At the district
Either
level,
north or south,
north or south district, or at the state level, to the state commission. Whom to name the opposite parties. This is one thing one has to be careful. If you have bought a television set, obviously the dealer is not the manufacturer.
True.
The same applies to a car or most other products, a mobile TV.
Yeah.
So it is better to name all possible concerned. So name the dealer as number 1 and the manufacturer as number 2.
So it is like I've bought a consumer good
Correct.
from so and so agency, shop, or
Yes.
whatever showroom,
Correct.
which belongs to so and so brand.
The product
right?
belongs to so and so.
So and so brand. Yeah.
So name them both so that in case it is sometime discovered that it is not the dealer's mistake, but the manufacturing mistake.
Correct.
If there is a manufacturing mistake in a car, what can the dealer really do?
True.
In a 20 lakh rupee car, probably, I have no idea, but probably the commission of the dealer is fairly low.
True.
Maybe 5% or less.
But however, the main onus lies with the
manufacturer.
the brand, the company who is manufacturing it. Very true. You said that one has to write the entire thing.
Correct.
Mention whom are you fighting against. Like in this case, maybe the shop, agency, showroom, and the brand, the company that as manufacturer has produced.
Correct.
Does anyone require a lawyer to get this done formalized as it happens in a traditional legal procedures?
That is one more advantage of the entire Consumer Protection Act. You can file your case and file it right up to the Supreme Court if necessary without engaging a lawyer. You can do it yourself. Not only that, you can simply authorize a friend, a person known to you to fight it on your behalf.
Okay.
So engagement of a lawyer is not essential, unless in the hierarchy of the High Court, Supreme Court, etc.
But sir, my again subsequent question would be: I am fighting against a multinational brand, for that matter,
Very much.
who has huge resources, huge manpower, everything.
True.
I am writing a handwritten as per my knowledge. So, is there a possibility that I might not be able to put it across? You say I can designate a friend,
Okay.
may or with or without legal knowledge.
Right.
I might kind of maybe fall short against the fight.
Yes.
Has this happened, or how does it work out?
See, there is basically it is ideally if you want to go ahead and file a consumer case, then ideally you should be able to at least look at the act.
Okay.
It's a small act. It runs into about 60 pages. A small booklet, smaller than A4, like a book size. Only about 60 to 70 pages. Ideally, one should look at it because basically you have to fight for your justice.
Okay.
So you look for all the provisions in the act, which are very simple and in layman's words. Having said that, it does not prevent you from hiring a lawyer.
Okay.
If you
If you
feel that added competence is necessary, one can always do so. The choice lies with you.
Okay. Also, like for example, you have in courts, I believe, public prosecutor who takes up the matter on behalf of you.
Okay.
So, is there a mechanism in the act and in your forum where I can come approach and you can depute somebody and that somebody takes up my matter?
I understand. Yes, this is something universal because a poor person who does not have the sufficient resources may not be able to hire a lawyer, for example. Now, in regular courts, they appoint sometimes the judge appoints what is known as amicus curiae. A judge appoints an advocate saying, please help the court by helping the gentleman.
Okay.
Now, that sort of system does not exist in the Consumer Commission. However, there exist state and district legal service authorities.
Okay.
These are bodies which get donations by way of fines also. I'll explain to you, that is part of our system.
Okay.
And these bodies then depute their advocate who works for you, for example, without any charge.
Okay, fine.
Once you establish that you need financial support.
Okay, you mentioned fine. I just want to ask you, what is the financial implication? If I want to register a complaint, what is the basic maybe fee or remuneration? How does it work out?
Yes. There again we have...
Or is it based on the value of the case or the product that I am fighting for?
It is. It is.
Okay.
Basically, it's the value of the case, the value of the product becomes the value of the complaint.
Okay.
How much you are paid becomes the value of the complaint. To give you some, for up to 5 lakh rupees, a product of up to 5 lakh rupees, you pay 0.
Okay.
And then in stages, to give an example, let's say up to 50 lakh rupees. At the level of 50 lakh rupees, you pay only 2,000 rupees
Okay.
as the court fee.
This is initially when I'm registering a complaint, or is it post the disposal?
No, initially.
Initially when I register
for the
complaint.
registration
Okay.
of complaint.
Okay, fine. Sir, obviously Goa is no different than the other part of the country where this act exists, and a lot of complaints are registered, a lot of are argued and disposed of also. Do you because you have had a journey of since 2004 till date, any example that you cite without naming the company and the complainant? If you can share it so that my viewers get a broader picture as to how to go about and how things have been disposed.
Yes, certainly. That's a. There are some cases which one may have read about in the newspapers about, for example, an elderly Sindhi gentleman in Mumbai, trying to go and buy a packet of biscuits where the printed price is 12. But because it's a large supermarket, he's been told to pay 20. And he objected to it, and he got awarded a hefty fine from the supermarket. In about 15 days, just 15 days back in Bangalore, a woman was not returned 1 rupee by the bus conductor, saying, I have no change. And that, of course, there are few private buses. This was one of the municipal bus.
Okay.
She went to the court. She just last week the result came out. She got 2,000 rupees awarded as compensation. These are cases outside. In our own Goa, here in Panjim, a person went to a hotel, a restaurant, and off the counter, he bought a bottle of milk, a bottle of water, wherein the printed price that day, those days, about 7-8 years back, was 10 rupees. He was sold it to it at 20 rupees.
Okay, double the price.
Double the price. And they said, this is our system. You take it or leave it. He also came before us. I happened to be in the same commission that he came to. And I was there, one of the people who passed the order.
Okay.
And we gave him a sufficient compensation. Another example I would like to mention. We talked about smaller products, televisions, water bottles, etc. But what is of concern is large value, especially flats. People invest their life savings typically into a flat. What happens if the builder absconds? He has taken substantial money, built half your building, and then disappeared. This has happened not only in other states, but it has happened many times in Goa too. What does happen then? We have recently taken a very important decision and passed a judgment in respect of 32 flats. The builder absconded by leaving the flats incomplete. The poor consumers, flat buyers, completed the flats themselves. But this does not end the story because they do not have title to it. They do not have an ownership document. You cannot will your flat to your son, for example, or you cannot sell it in case you are in need of money. What do? Goa State Consumer Commission took a decision to appoint our registrar as a commissioner who will step into the shoes of the absconding builder. And registrar, the appropriate sub-registrar, property registrar, is directed that the sale deed be taken place. This happened, this order was pronounced by us about 2 months back.
There's quite some examples because you बरेचदा आम्ही म्हणता की 1 रुपया खातीर कितें आसूं पडो पाड चल या फुडें टायम कोण वेस्ट करतलो बट आय थिंक इफ यू वॉन्ट टू fight for your right, and if you want to value the transaction, not importantly money,
Yes.
but also your time and efforts that you're putting, I think you have to take things at task. Only then you can set some example in life for, of course, for us and also for people who look up. Like, for example, all these examples that you mentioned are like case studies in their own right, and obviously we'd like to know a lot more of all these case studies. तुमचा इतको व्हडलो प्रवास आसा, तुम्ही you are an engineer by profession, and today you are heading the Redressal forum of Goa. म्हाका एकूच विचारूंक जाय की इतको व्हडलो तुमचो प्रवास आसा, any suggestions, any tweaking that you feel that should happen in your office or in the act, more importantly?
Yes. This is I would say quite a stroke of coincidence. Since we decided that you were kind enough to invite me about 4 or 5 days back, and we decided we would be meeting here and talk about consumer. Coincidentally, on 3rd March, the Supreme Court has pronounced its judgment. I have just seen it on social media. Once I see the entire judgment, once it appears, then I'll be able to comment on it better. But basically what the Supreme Court has done is upheld an earlier judgment by the Nagpur bench of the Mumbai High Court, which stated that retired High Court and district judges need not head these consumer commissions. This has been upheld by the Supreme Court. They said people knowledgeable in consumer matters are enough. You don't have to have a retired High Court or a district judge.
A large legal background as such was not required.
So a 10 years experienced lawyer or even a 10 years experienced graduate with a lot of knowledge and exposure to consumer affairs, he can also be appointed.
Okay, that's fantastic.
This the Supreme Court has said.
You mentioned appointment. I just want to understand how is the process? Who appoints? Is it the state level? Is it some ministerial elected representative? How does the appointment takes place?
No, these are, though we are called as commissions, these are essentially judicial positions. Tribunal commissions, etc., are all judicial positions. So there is no question of any elected representatives. There is a system. There is a system laid out in the Act, in the Consumer Protection Act. For example, at the state level, the president and members of state as well as district are appointed by a committee which is headed by a High Court judge, which includes this secretary of the department, which is the nodal department for this. For example, in Goa, it is the Department of Consumer Supplies and Civil Supplies and Consumer Affairs. And a third secretary, which the chief secretary may appoint. He himself may sit in, or it could be the law secretary, or he may depute. So a committee like this, essentially headed by the High Court judge. So they decide on appointments.
In our conversation, I recollect you mentioned Supreme Court at the end of the day.
Yes.
Like in Goa, I see you have north and the south offices, districts, which operate independently. If I feel I don't agree to the judgment that has been given, then of course I believe they come to you as a state.
They come in appeal.
Yeah, they come as appeal to you as a state president.
Yes.
If I am not happy with your judgment also,
which is quite reasonable,
where do I head next?
Then you need to head to what is known as the National Consumer Commission, which is based in Delhi. They have their own large setup, their own large building, 8 to 9 courtrooms, and headed by retired Supreme Court judges. So this National Consumer Commission is a fairly large and competitive authority body over every state commission.
And again, if
the National Commission, again that is the beauty is you can be unsatisfied. That's a right. That is what democracy is about. Then you go to the Supreme Court.
Okay, so this is not an independent channel or something that works parallelly to the traditional judiciary of us or legal system.
It is actually.
It ends up at Supreme Court.
And the ending point is, the nodal point is the same.
Okay. Okay.
Because you can't have separate Supreme Courts for these type of
So
cases.
for all your consumer affairs, you need not go to JMFC, High Court. But
You need
that
not
route is
that.
not where you should be going. You should be taking this route, and then finally you end up for the final decision at Supreme Court.
True.
Okay,
Absolutely.
that's an interesting insight to what we have been discussing. One last question before I end is, if there is a transaction,
Yes.
is it and it's a faulty transaction where you say you've been cheated,
Something is here.
You're not happy with the transaction.
True.
Should I register a complaint within, say, 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, or can I wait? Or should I, while conversing, I might feel so 2 years back something happened,
Yes.
and I feel I should have, I should apply now. What is there a duration time frame?
Yes, there certainly is, because the whole principle of justice is that you have to ask for it.
Okay.
You have to ask for it. There exist provisions in other legal issues also. For example, if you have a large property and you have some houses on this side and some houses on this side, and if you have allowed them to walk through yours for more than 20 years, now you cannot block them.
Correct.
You have allowed that easement, you have allowed that ease of way for 20 years, then now you cannot block them.
Okay.
So
With respect to product?
yes, with respect to the Consumer Protection Act, 2 years is a limitation period.
So within 2 years of
Within
the
2 years-
transaction of buying the product,
Yes.
you should register.
Or
with
at
the
least
forum.
within 2 years of discovering its defects.
Okay.
Yeah, within 2 years. A reasonable extension, provided you can show some reason. If somebody has been sick, he was down with corona for 8 months or longer,
Correct.
then some sort of extension can be given to this limitation period. But otherwise, 2 years is a limitation period.
Okay. Finally, sir, towards the end,
Yes.
if there is one message that you would like to give to all my viewers who are watching the program right now.
Yes, I certainly would like to. One is, of course, one has to be aware of the consumer rights. Be aware of your rights. Every stage you are a consumer. You buy a bus ticket, you travel in the air, you travel by train, you buy any product, you buy a flat. You have to be aware of your rights. And unless you are aware of your rights, the cardinal principle of justice is that justice will not be delivered to you at home. You have to go and ask for it. You have to go and demand it. And then in our system, we are sure you will get it.
I think, sir, thank you very much for joining. It was quite an insight into the working of your forum, also understanding the structural, segments or structures that is there, and how to approach with a proper complaint.
Yes.
This is something that I believe, of course, I learned, and I believe that my viewers also learned.
Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much for joining. हे असले धनंजय जोग जे आसा प्रेसिडेंट गोवा स्टेट कंज्युमर डिस्प्यूट रिड्रेसल फोरमाचेर जे उलयताले आमच्या बद्दल ऑन कंज्युमर रायट्स प्रोटेक्शन आनी ऑफकोर्स तुमचे जर कितें डिस्प्यूट आसा जाल्यार आतां तुमकां खबर आसा खंय वचपाचें आनी ताका लिगल ऑर लॉजिकल कन्क्लुजना कडेन कशें पावपाचें आसलें. थँक्यू व्हेरी मच सर, प्लेजर इट वॉज. तुम्ही खंय वचो नाका, तुम्ही पळयत रावात प्रुडंट.